The rain hammered the old tin roof like 1,000 accusations. But it was the silence inside the house that cut deepest. Brandon froze in the doorway, his boots dripping mud onto the faded Persian rug his grandma had cherished, staring at the eviction notice nailed to the mantel like a death sentence. "This can't be happening," he whispered, his voice cracking as Benjamin's hand, warm, steady, squeezed his shoulder, the only anchor in the storm that had just swallowed his entire world. Brandon had always known the house on Elm Street was more than bricks and mortar. It was the heartbeat of his fractured family, the one constant in a life stitched together from hand-me-downs and half-remembered holidays. Nestled in the sleepy hollows of Willow Creek, Ohio, a town where cornfields stretched like golden promises under endless blue skies and Friday night lights lit up the hopes of every kid with a dream too big for the county line. This creaky Victorian had stood sentinel since 1892. Its wraparound porch sagged just enough to whisper secrets, and the attic smelled of mothballs and moonshine from Grandpa's Prohibition days. Grandma Ellie, with her silver curls and laugh like wind chimes, had turned it into a sanctuary for strays. The neighbor kid with the black eye from his drunk dad, the feral cat that birthed kittens in the linen closet, and Brandon himself, dropped off at 12 like an unwanted parcel after his parents' car wrapped around a semi on I-71. That was 20 years ago, give or take. Now, at 32, Brandon stood in the kitchen, the eviction notice crumpled in his fist. The words "foreclosure proceedings initiated by Lillian Hargrove" burning like acid in his gut. Lillian, his aunt, his mother's older sister, the one who'd always eyed the house like a hawk spotting a lame rabbit. She'd swooped in after Ellie's funeral 2 weeks back, all pearl necklaces and saccharine condolences, whispering about family burdens and better uses for the property. Brandon had brushed it off as grief talking, but this was war. He sank into the oak chair by the window, the one Grandma had rocked him in during thunderstorms, and let the sobs come raw, ugly things that shook his broad shoulders and soaked the collar of his flannel shirt. Benjamin watched from the doorway, his dark eyes shadowed with that quiet worry he wore like a second skin. They'd reconnected at the funeral, two ghosts from high school haunting the same pews. Benji back then, lanky, bookish, with a sketchpad always tucked under his arm, had been the first boy to make Brandon's heart stutter, their fumbling kisses hidden in the bleachers after pep rallies. Life had pulled them apart, Brandon to the army, chasing structure in the deserts of Iraq, Ben to art school in Chicago, where he'd clawed his way into graphic design gigs that barely paid the rent. But Willow Creek had a way of reeling you back, like a fish too stubborn to cut the line. "You gonna be okay?" Ben asked, his voice low and steady, crossing the linoleum in 2 strides. He knelt beside the chair, one hand on Brandon's knee, the other brushing damp hair from his forehead. Close. Ben smelled like rain and sandalwood soap, a scent that tugged at memories Brandon had buried deep. Brandon swallowed hard, his green eyes, Ellie's eyes, meeting Ben's. "She can't do this. Grandma left it to me." The will said, "Lawyer's gonna lawyer." Ben cut in gently, his thumb tracing a soothing circle on Brandon's jeans. "But we'll fight it. Together." There was a promise in those words, heavy as the storm outside, and for a split second, Brandon let himself lean into it. Into Ben, the one person who'd never made him feel like loving men was a sin to be scrubbed clean. The next morning dawned gray and grudging, the kind of Midwest November that clings to your bones. Brandon met with the estate lawyer in a strip mall office that reeked of stale coffee and desperation. "Mr. Hargrove, no relation, thank God," though the name twisted like a knife, was a rumpled man in his 60s, glasses perpetually sliding down his nose. "Your grandmother's will is ironclad, son," he said, flipping through yellowed pages. "The house, the land, it's all yours. But your aunt, she's contesting on grounds of undue influence. Claims Ellie was senile in her last months. Pressured you into it." "Senile?" Brandon's voice rose, echoing off the paneled walls. "She was sharp as a tack till the end. Baked me apple pie the week before she passed. Recited the Gettysburg Address backward just to prove a point." Hargrove nodded sympathetically. I know. But Lillian's got a slick attorney from Columbus. They're digging into finances, liens, back taxes. Ellie's medical bills piled up. The house might be underwater. Brandon's stomach plummeted. He'd known about the bills, the endless co-pays for her cancer treatments, but Grandma had waved him off. "We'll manage, Branbear. This old girl here's worth more than gold." Now, felt like a trap snapping shut. Driving back to Elm Street in his beat-up Ford F-150, the wipers slapping rhythmically against the drizzle, Brandon's mind raced. Willow Creek blurred past. The diner where he'd flipped burgers as a teen, the high school football field scarred by his cleats, the creek that had witnessed his first awkward confession to Ben under the weeping willow. "I think I like boys," he'd blurted, 16 and terrified. Ben had just grinned, tugged him close. "Good. 'Cause I like you." Pulling into the driveway, gravel crunching under tires, Brandon spotted the for sale sign already staked in the front yard. Lillian's handiwork. No doubt. Fury boiled up, hot and righteous, but it fizzled when he saw Ben on the porch, toolbox in hand, prying at a loose shutter. Shirt sleeves rolled to his elbows, tattoos, a sleeve of intricate vines and stars, flexing with each yank. Ben looked up, flashed that crooked smile. "Figured we'd start small. Fix what's broken before the big fight." Brandon hopped out, the chill air nipping at his cheeks. "You don't have to." "Shut up," Ben said, affectionate as ever, tossing him a hammer. "I'm invested. Always have been." They worked side by side through the afternoon, the rhythm of nails and would a bomb against the ache. Ben shared stories from Chicago, nights in dive bars sketching strangers, the ex who ghosted him after coming out to his folks, while Brandon confessed the Army's ghosts. Sand in his dreams, the buddy he couldn't save in Fallujah. Laughter mixed with the sawdust, tentative at first, then freer, like old times amplified by the years apart. By dusk, the shutter hung straight, and as they washed up at the sink, Ben's hip brushed Brandon's. Deliberate, electric. Brandon turned, water dripping from his chin, and pulled Ben into a kiss that tasted of sweat and second chances. It was messy, urgent, hands fisting in shirts as they stumbled toward the living room couch, the one with the Afghan grandma knitted. Ben's mouth was fire against his neck, whispering, "Missed this. Missed you." Brandon arched into it, the world narrowing to the press of bodies, the gasp of rediscovered want. For those stolen hours, the house felt alive again, its walls bearing witness to a love that had simmered unspoken for too long. But reality crashed back with the dawn. A knock at the door, sharp, insistent, revealed Lillian on the stoop, umbrella shielding her perfectly coiffed bob, flanked by a realtor in a power suit. "Brandon, dear," she cooed, ice cold as the Ohio winter. "We need to talk. This phase of yours with that boy is clouding your judgment." Sell now, before you drag the family name through the mud. The words landed like slaps, Ben stiffening beside him on the threshold. Brandon's jaw clenched. Get off my porch, Aunt Lil. This house is mine, Grandma's promise. She smirked, rain beating on her raincoat. Promises break, nephew. Like the one you made to keep this town respectable. With that, she turned, leaving the scent of Chanel and contempt in her wake. Ben's hand found Brandon's in the silence. She's scared, he murmured. Of you. Of us. Brandon nodded, but doubt gnawed at him. What if she was right? What if loving Ben meant losing everything else? The days blurred into a tense standoff, Willow Creek's gossip mill grinding overtime. At the feed and seed, old-timers shot Brandon sidelong glances over their coffee mugs, murmuring about Ellie's boy and that artsy fella from the city. The diner waitresses, girls Brandon had dated in high school to keep up appearances, offered pitying smiles with their pie slices, whispering, heard Lillian's lawyering up big time. Even Pastor Jenkins pulled him aside after Sunday service, Bible in hand, droning about family reconciliation and the wages of unnatural sin. Brandon nodded through it all, jaw tight, while Ben sketched feverishly in his notebook, capturing the town's hypocrisy in sharp, satirical lines. Nights were their refuge. Curled on the couch under flickering lamplight, they'd talk until the words ran dry, Brandon unspooling the Army's scars, the way IED blasts echoed in his nightmares. Ben confessing the isolation of Chicago's queer scene, where hookups felt like transactions and love was a punchline in too many rom-coms. I came back for a job at the community college, Ben admitted one evening, his head in Brandon's lap, fingers tracing the faded scar on his thigh from a Humvee rollover. But really, it was the obit in the paper. Your grandma's. Figured you'd need someone who knew the boy behind the uniform. Brandon's heart swelled, thumb brushing Ben's cheekbone. I needed you, he said simply, and meant it deeper than any oath he'd sworn in boot camp. Their lovemaking unfolded slow that night, reverent, Ben mapping Brandon's body like a sacred text, kisses lingering on collarbones and hip bones, gasps mingling with the creak of floorboards. It was more than lust. It was reclamation, two souls stitching themselves whole in the house that had cradled them both. But Lillian wasn't one to fade quietly. She escalated midweek, filing a motion to freeze the estate pending a competency hearing for Ellie. The courthouse in the county seat became a battlefield. Brandon in his Sunday best, sweating under fluorescent lights, while Lillian's attorney, a shark named Caldwell with a Rolex and a southern drawl, paraded witnesses who'd claim Ellie was confused in her final days. Mrs. Abernathy from the library testified tearfully about Ellie's forgetfulness, how she'd repeated stories at book club. Caldwell leaned in, voice oily, and did Mrs. Hargrove ever express concerns about her grandsons' lifestyle influencing her decisions? Abernathy flushed, glancing at Brandon. Well, Ellie was old-fashioned. Worried he'd end up alone. You know, the implication hung like smoke, and Brandon's fists balled under the table. Ben, who'd insisted on coming, squeezed his hand, hidden, fierce. Easy, he breathed. She's baiting you. Afterward, in the parking lot, Lillian cornered them by the truck. See, even the town knows you're poison. Brandon. Sell to me, I'll make it quick. Or I'll drag every dirty secret into court. That little fling with Benji? The whole congregation will know by Easter. Ben stepped forward, chin lifted. Threats now, Lil? Classy. Ellie's will stands because she chose love over legacy. Maybe try that sometime. She laughed, brittle and sharp. Love? That's what you call it? You're both delusions, ruining everything she built. Brandon shoved past her, engine roaring to life as they peeled out. The drive home was thick with unspoken rage, Ben's knee bouncing until he snapped. Pull over. They stopped at the old quarry overlook, the Ohio River snaking silver below under a bruised sky. Ben paced the gravel pull-off, kicking stones into the abyss. She's using us against you. Like it's leverage. Brandon leaned against the hood, wind whipping his hair. It is. Always has been. Dad hated it, kicked me out at 18 when he found my journal. Mom just cried. Grandma? She hugged me, said, "Love's the hardest fight, Bran, but it's the only one worth winning." Ben stopped, eyes fierce. Then we win it. No backing down. He closed the distance, hands framing Brandon's face, kissing him with a desperation that bordered on prayer. They made love right there in the truck bed, under a quilt from the house, the world reduced to rust and rain and the thunder of hearts. It was defiant, alive, a fuck you to the ant, the town, the ghosts. Back home, resolve hardened. Brandon pored over Ellie's papers in the attic, dust motes dancing in the beam from a single bulb. Boxes of letters, yellowed photos, Grandpa in his doughboy uniform, Mom as a gap-toothed kid on a swing. Tucked in a cigar box was the will holograph, handwritten in Ellie's looping script. To my grandson Brandon Michael Hargrove, I leave the home at 147 Elm Street, free and clear, because he understands what it means to hold on when the world wants to let go. No strings, no judgments. Just love. Below it, a codicil. If blood tries to claim what's heart's, let the neighbors speak. Neighbors? Brandon frowned, tucking it away as Ben called from downstairs. Dinner, meatloaf like Grandma made. But the word lingered, a seed in fertile soil. The conflict crested that Friday. Lillian arrived unannounced, Caldwell in tow, papers waving like white flags of surrender that weren't. Emergency hearing granted, the attorney announced on the porch, as if delivering pizza. Probate judge wants a full accounting Monday. Your aunt's prepared to bid. Cash offer. Above market. Brandon blocked the door, arms crossed. Over my dead body. Lillian's eyes narrowed. Venom sweet. Don't tempt fate, boy. Ellie's debts are yours now. And with your indiscretions on record. She glanced pointedly at Ben, unpacking groceries inside. The judge is a churchman. Family values. Ben emerged, sleeves rolled, a butcher knife casual in his grip from slicing tomatoes. Indiscretions? That's rich coming from the woman who bankrupted her own sister with loans that never got repaid. He'd overheard enough at the funeral to connect dots. Lillian's help, with Mom's medical bills post-accident. Interest rates usurious as sin. Caldwell blustered, but Lillian paled. Lies. Receipts don't lie, Ben shot back, calm as a loaded gun. Ellie kept books. Brandon's got 'em. It was a bluff. Brandon hadn't found any yet, but it landed. They retreated, tires spinning gravel, but the damage festered. That night, alone in the kitchen, Brandon cracked open a bottle of Ellie's homemade elderberry wine, the tart burn matching his mood. Ben found him there at midnight, head in hands. What if we lose? He rasped. This house. It's all I have left of her. Of us. Before everything went to shit. Ben slid onto the stool beside him, pouring a glass for himself. Then we build another. But we won't. Not on my watch. His kiss was soft, then deepening, hands wandering until they tumbled to the rug. Wine forgotten. In the afterglow, tangled and spent, Ben murmured against Brandon's chest. I love you, you know. Have since that stupid homecoming dance. Brandon's breath hitched. Yeah. Me too. But dawn brought betrayal's sharpest edge. A letter slipped under the door. Anonymous. Typed. Your aunt paid me to lie about Ellie's mind. But she knows your secret. Back off. Or it goes public. Attached. A photo. Grainy but unmistakable, Brandon and Ben, kissing in the truck at the quarry. Someone had followed them. Paranoia bloomed like black mold. Who? A neighbor? The realtor? Brandon's hands shook as he showed Ben, the warmth of last night curdling to ice. This ends us. The house, the town, everything. Ben's jaw set. Like hell. We face it. Together. Yet, as they plotted counters, a knock echoed, not Lillian's imperious rap, but soft, hesitant. Mrs. Kowalski from next door, 80 if a day, pie in hand, apple, still steaming. Heard the fuss, she said, eyes twinkling behind bifocals. Ellie made me promise. Time I kept it, Mrs. Kowalski's kitchen was a time capsule of formica counters and gingham curtains, the air thick with cinnamon and the faint must of age. She settled them at her formica table, Brandon and Ben on mismatched chairs, her in a rocker that creaked like old bones, before unveiling not just the pie, but a manila envelope yellowed at the edges. Ellie and I, we go back to pigtails and polio scares. She began, slicing generous wedges, steam curling like secrets. Swore we'd look out for each other. When she got sick, she made me vow, if blood turned sour, I'd remind her boy of the promise. Brandon's fork paused midair, apple filling glistening. What promise? She slid the envelope across, arthritic fingers steady. Inside, a letter, dated 5 years back. Ellie's script bold despite the chemo haze. To my dearest friend Helen, if I go before settling things, tell Brandon the house ain't just wood and windows. It's the vow I made to his mama, after the accident, when Lillian tried to take it all for safekeeping. I promised her girl would inherit, no matter what storms came. And for Bran, it's his anchor, same as it was mine. Love him fierce. Helen. Don't let the vultures win. Brandon's vision blurred, the words swimming. A vow. Not just to him, but to Mom, buried under that twisted metal on I-71. Her last wish whispered to Grandma in the hospital. Keep the kids safe, Ma. Keep the home. Lillian had swooped then too, peddling practicality. But Ellie had fought, mortgaging her savings to buy it outright. And now, history rhymed, cruel and insistent. Ben read over his shoulder, breath warm on Brandon's neck. This changes everything. Motive. Proof of pattern. Mrs. Kowalski nodded, sipping tea from a chipped mug. Lillian's always been jealous. Wanted the house for her McMansion dreams. Flip it for a condo in Florida. But Ellie's will, ironclad, if you show the judge this. And the neighbors. She trailed off, a sly smile cracking her wrinkles. We're rallying. Quiet like. Bake sale tomorrow at the church hall. Proceeds to your legal fund. Pastor don't know yet, but he will. Gratitude choked Brandon, a lump too big for words. He hugged her, fierce, awkward, the scent of talc and resolve clinging to her cardigan. Outside, the neighborhood stirred. Mr. Patel from across the street waved from his porch, trimming hedges with unusual vigor. The Ramirez kids biked past, yelling, "We got your back, Mr. B." Willow Creek, for all its small-minded murmurs, had layers, roots deep as the elms, tangled in loyalty. Armed with the letter, they stormed Hargrove's office that afternoon, the envelope a talisman against Caldwell's bluster. The lawyer's eyes widened behind his glasses. This establishes intent. Undue influence claim crumbles. I'll counterfile for harassment, Lillian's loans, the photo stunt. Who sent that? By the way, her, Brandon growled, though doubt lingered. Anonymous, but the timing screamed family feud. Hargrove whistled low. Monday's hearing? We'll bury him. Elation buzzed through dinner, Ben's spaghetti, garlic bread toasted crisp, laughter bubbling as they clinked bottles of cheap beer. To vows kept, Ben toasted, foot hooking Brandon's under the table, a spark in his eyes promising more than words. But betrayal's shadow lengthened that night. Brandon's phone buzzed at 2 a.m., unknown number. Voicemail. A man's voice, gravelly with regret. It's Caldwell. Your aunt. She cornered me. Offered double to dig dirt. I took the photo, Corey. I'm sorry, kid. Sending proof now. Attached. Emails. Timestamps damning. Lillian's directives. Cold as a contract kill. Make it hurt. Expose the fag if you have to. Brandon played it twice, while rising, before waking Ben. They sat on the porch steps, moonlight silvering the yard, the recording a poison between them. She hates me that much? Brandon whispered, voice raw. For who I am, for loving you. Ben pulled him close, arms a fortress. She hates losing control. But us? We're the wind she can't touch. His lips brushed Brandon's temple, then jaw, trailing fire down to collarbone, comfort turning carnal, a balm against the wound. They moved inside, bodies entwining on the guest room quilt, slow and shattering. Ben's whispers, "You're enough. We're enough." A mantra against the dark. Dawn broke with war drums. Lillian's SUV in the drive at 7 a.m. Her alone this time. No suit-clad muscle. She looked smaller without armor. Lipstick smudged. Eyes red-rimmed. I know you have the letter, she said. Voice brittle as she clutched her purse like a shield. Helen blabbed. Fine. Take the house. But you're destroying us. All of us. Brandon stood firm, Ben at his back like a shadow warrior. Us? You mean your ego? Aunt Lil. Mom trusted you once. Let you manage things after the crash. You bled her dry, then tried the same with Grandma. And now me? Because I love a man. She flinched, glancing at Ben as if he were a specter. It's not. It's the scandal. The town talks. Ellie's rolling in her grave. Bullshit, Ben snapped, stepping forward. Ellie knew. Hugged me at graduation. Slipped me a 24 keepin' her boy smiling. She wanted this for him. For us. Lillian's facade cracked. Tears spilling. I was scared. For you, Bran. After your folks. I thought structure, normalcy. A wife, kids. Not this mess. Brandon's anger fractured, pity seeping in. Normalcy? That's your cage. Not mine. Grandma saw that. Gave me wings instead. She nodded, defeated, handing over a check, full repayment of the loans, plus interest. For the debts. Call it amends. Then, softer, I'm sorry. For everything. She drove off, tail lights fading into fog, leaving a hollow victory. Brandon sagged against Ben, the weight lifting but echoes lingering. Think she'll change? Ben shrugged, nuzzling his neck. People don't. But we did. The hearing Monday was anticlimax. Caldwell recused, stammering apologies. Lillian absent, her motion withdrawn. Judge Harlan, a grizzled vet with a soft spot for underdogs, slammed the gavel. Property to the grandson. Case closed. Cheers erupted from the back. Neighbors spilling in like a tidal wave. Mrs. Kowalski waving a welcome home banner crafted from bedsheets. Brandon blinked back tears. Ben's grin splitting wide as they hugged amid backslaps and pie slices. But high on the porch that evening, beers in hand, the high crashed. What now? Brandon asked, stars pricking the velvet sky. House is safe, but the photo. Town's gonna see. Ben set his bottle down, turning earnest. Then we own it. Come out loud, no hiding. Or we leave. Start fresh. Chicago, your call. Brandon searched his face. The man who'd bridged boyhood dreams to manhood's truths. Stay. Fight. With you. Their kiss sealed it, passionate, unapologetic as fireflies danced, the house exhaling relief. Yet conflict simmered beneath. Whispers at the bar that week, Hargrove boys queer, always knew, a slash tire on Ben's Civic, eggs on the porch. Lillian's silence spoke volumes. Amends half-made, old wounds festering. Winter crept in on frost-kissed winds, blanketing Willow Creek in a hush that amplified every creak and whisper. The house on Elm Street transformed under their hands. Brandon refinishing the oak floors, sweat beading on his brow as Sanders hummed like contented bees. Ben painting the kitchen walls a bold sage green, splatters dotting his jeans like abstract art. It was therapy in motion, each nail driven a defiance, each coat of varnish a vow renewed. Mornings started with coffee on the porch, black for Brandon, latte foamed for Ben, watching the town stir, school buses rumbling, farmers hauling hay. Evenings ended tangled in the master bed. Ellie's four-poster, now there's lovemaking, a symphony of sighs and shared breaths, bodies learning the poetry of permanence. But peace was fragile as new ice. The photo leaked mid-December. Anonymous email to the Willow Creek Gazette. Front page blur under local estate drama. Scandalous affair or family feud? Grainy pixels couldn't hide the truth. Two men, locked in embrace, quarry backdrop damning. The town ignited, congregation splintering. Pastor Jenkins thundering from the pulpit about Sodom's shadow, while the younger crowd rallied with rainbow stickers on diner windows. Brandon fielded calls at the auto shop, his day job wrenching on pickups, customers averting eyes or doubling tips with pity. Heard about the paper, old mister. Ellis grunted, sliding keys across the counter. Rough break, son. But Ellie's boy, you got grit. Grit, yeah. But it wore thin. That night, Brandon slammed into the house, grease-streaked and seething, tossing his lunchbox on the counter. Ben looked up from his laptop, design mock-ups for a queer-lit zine, concern etching his brow. Bad day. Worse than Fallujah, Brandon bit out, pacing the kitchen. Folks staring, whispering. Like I'm the freak show. And you, Ben stood, closing the distance. Me what? You're the city boy, Ben. This ain't Chicago, no pride parades, no safe spaces. You're gonna bail when the eggs turn to bricks. The words hung, ugly and unintended. Ben's face shuddered, hurt flashing before steel set in. Bail? After everything? I'm here because I choose you, idiot. Not the house. Not the drama, you. Brandon deflated, shoulders slumping. Sorry. Just scared. What if it's too much? For us? Ben cupped his face, thumbs wiping phantom tears. Then we burn it down and dance in the ashes. But together, his kiss started soft, apology woven in, then ignited hands roaming, shirts discarded in a trail to the stairs. Upstairs, they claimed each other with a ferocity born of fear, Ben's nails raking Brandon's back, gasps echoing off wallpaper. Mine, Ben growled against his throat, and Brandon shattered, whispering back, always. Christmas Eve brought fragile truce. Neighbors trickled by, Mrs. Kowalski with kolaches, the Patels with samosas, gifts wrapped in newspaper, notes reading from one fighter to another. Even Lillian appeared at dusk, poinsettia in arms, cheeks flushed from cold or contrition. Truce? She asked, voice small on the porch. Dinner tomorrow? Neutral ground, the diner. Brandon hesitated, Ben's hand warm at his waist. One condition. No judgments. She nodded, eyes glistening. Deal. The meal was awkward symphony. Turkey dry, mashed potatoes lumpy, conversation skirting landmines. Lillian spoke haltingly of her own losses. Divorce after 20 years, the ex who called her frigid, a son estranged, echoes of her own rigidity. I pushed you away to protect something. Legacy, I guess. But it's hollow without family. Brandon reached across, tentative. Start over? As aunt and nephew, she squeezed his hand, tears salting her gravy. I'd like that. Ben watched, quiet, his foot nudging Brandon's, a silent proud of you, as they parted. Snow flurrying, Lillian hugged Ben stiffly. Take care of him. Plan to, he replied, grin sly. You'll fire crackled that night. Stockings hung crooked, Ben's idea, stuffed with inside jokes. Dog tags for Brandon, a sketchpad for Ben. They made love by the hearth, slow and sacred, embers glowing on sweat-slick skin. Merry Christmas, soldier, Ben murmured, tracing constellations on Brandon's chest. Happy holidays, artist, Brandon replied, heart full. January thawed the ice but not the undercurrents. Ben's college gig expanded, workshops on digital illustration, drawing queer youth from neighboring towns, and whispers turned to support. Kids lingering after class saw the photo. You're brave, Mr. Hayes. Brandon's shop buzzed too. A local garage chain offered partnership, citing community pillar, yet betrayal's ghost stirred anew. Valentine's loomed, Ben planning a surprise, picnic at the creek, wine and watercolors, when Brandon's phone rang, Hargrove, urgent. New wrinkle. Lillian's contesting again. claims emotional duress from the scandal. Wants half the equity. Rage roared back. After Christmas? The check. Smoke screen, the lawyer sighed. She's doubling down. Hearing next week. Confrontation brewed. Brandon drove to Lillian's bungalow. Prim, pristine. A far cry from Elm's charm. Finding her in the garden. Pruning roses despite the chill. Why? He demanded. Voice thunder. We had peace. She straightened. Shears trembling. I can't. The church ladies. The looks. If I back you, I'm complicit. In sin. Ben, who'd tailed in his car, stormed up. Sin? That's your fear talking, not faith. Ellie's promise was love, unconditional. You gonna spit on her grave? Lillian's face crumpled. I loved my sister. But this. You too. It's unnatural. Brandon's heart fractured. Unnatural? Like burying your own blood? Or bleeding family dry? He thrust the codicil forward, the neighbor's clause. Ellie knew you'd pull this. Said let them speak. She scanned it, paling. What now? Now? You drop it. Or the town hears everything, loans, photos, all. Defeat bowed her shoulders. Fine. I'll withdraw. But leave me be. He nodded, turning away, Ben's hand in his a lifeline. In the truck, tears came hot, cathartic. Hate her, Brandon choked. Ben pulled over, holding him through it. Hate's heavy. Let it go, for you. Their lovemaking that night was storm-wrought. Urgent, edges raw, bodies colliding in the dark. Ben pinned him to the mattress, eyes locked. I see you, Bran. All of you. And I stay. Climax crested like waves, leaving them adrift in aftershocks. Whispers of forever. The hearing came and went. Lillian's absence a white flag. Judge sealing the deed with a gavel's finality. Neighbors cheered outside. An impromptu block party. Grills smoking. Beers clinking. Mrs. Kowalski toasting. Two promises. But as confetti swirled, a shadow fell. Ben's ex from Chicago. Uninvited. Texting. Heard you're playing house. Careful. He runs when it gets real. Doubt crept. Insidious. That night, Brandon confronted Ben over whiskey. You ever think this is too small? For you. Ben's laugh was soft. Pained. Small? This is everything. You are. Yet the seed sprouted. Tension coiling like spring. Spring erupted in Willow Creek like a long-held breath. Dogwoods blooming pink against greening hills. The creek swelling with meltwater's promise. The house on Elm Street stood reborn. Garden tilled. Wildflowers nodding in the breeze. Porch swaying lazy under lazy afternoons. Brandon and Ben fell into rhythm. A duet honed by trials. Mornings wrenching engines side by side at the shop. Ben sketching logos for clients while Brandon cursed stubborn bolts. Evenings grilling burgers on the new Weber. Fireflies winking approval as they danced barefoot to old Springsteen on the radio. Love deepened in the quiet spaces. Ben's head on Brandon's shoulder during TCM marathons. Decoding Casablanca's heartaches. Brandon surprising Ben with a custom easel carved from attic scraps. Initials intertwined like vines. Intimacy wove richer threads. Lazy Sundays in bed. Exploring with painter's patience. Ben's tongue tracing freckles like stars. Brandon's hands mapping the curve of Ben's spine. Gasps blooming into laughter when knees knocked. Home. Ben would sigh post-climax. fingers laced, and Brandon would echo it, the word a sacrament. Yet scars itched. Lillian's withdrawal held, but distance yawned, holidays unanswered. Her bungalow shuttered more days than not. Whispers persisted. At the market, a cashier's averted gaze. At the bar, a stool pulled away. Ben brushed it off. But Brandon saw the toll, sketches edgier. Smiles strained. Crisis crested Memorial Day weekend. The town festival, carnival rides whirring. Funnel cakes scenting the air drew crowds to the park. Brandon manned the VFW booth, flipping burgers for vets. Ben sketching caricatures for kids. Laughter flowed easy until dusk, when Pastor Jenkins approached, megaphone in hand for the invocation. "We gather to honor the fallen," he boomed, then paused, eyes on them, "and to remember values that bind us, family, faith, the American way." The crowd shifted, murmurs rising. A beer bottle shattered nearby, not thrown, but the sound cracked like judgment. Ben tensed, pencil snapping. Incoming, sure enough. A knot of elders, Jenkins' flock, advanced, Bibles clutched like weapons. "Repent!" one bellowed, face veined red. "This town won't abide your perversion." Brandon stepped forward, grill spatula in hand like a sword. "Perversion? We're the ones flipping patties for your picnic. Go peddle hate elsewhere." Ben flanked him, voice steady. "Or join us. Burgers are free, love's optional." The ringleader sneered. "Ellie's boy. Corrupted. Shame, Mrs." Kowalski materialized then, cane thwacking ground. "Shame? On you? Harlan Jenkins. Ellie told me your daddy's moonshine debts. She paid him quiet. No sermons attached. Backed by Patel's, Ramirez's, a rainbow of faces. The tide turned. The elders slunk off, megaphone forgotten. Adrenaline thrummed as they packed up, Ben's hand brushing Brandon's in the lamplight. "Heroes," Brandon teased, bumping shoulders. "Nah. Just us." Ben's kiss was quicksilver, hidden but heated, promising more. Fireworks burst overhead that night, crescendo of light and thunder, mirroring the one in their bed later, urgent and unbound. Ben riding the wave of Brandon's thrusts, cries lost in booms. "Never letting go," Ben panted, collapsing spent, and Brandon held him through the aftershocks, tears mingling on pillows. June brought reckoning. A letter from Lillian, handwritten, tentative. "I've been attending group. For families. Learning. Can we try again? T." Brandon showed Ben, doubt warring hope. "Go," Ben urged. "Heal it. For you." The bungalow felt smaller, roses rampant. Over chamomile, Lillian unfolded stories of therapy couches, revelations raw, her own buried attractions, a college crush on a roommate, suppressed into armor. "I projected my fear onto you. Onto love I couldn't claim." Brandon listened, ache easing. "Grandma would have wanted this. Forgiveness." She nodded, hugging him goodbye, fiercer than Christmas. "Bring Ben next time." Summer solstice sealed shifts, pride flags fluttering from Elm Street porches, the Gazette running Ben's op-ed, "Love's the real American dream," editorial page turning. Ben's workshop swelled, Brandon guest speaking on resilience, vets nodding kinship. A climax loomed in August heat. A developer, slick from Cleveland, offered triple market for the block. Eyeing condos, Rumors swirled. Lillian tempted, her bungalow on the list. She called Brandon frantic. They're pressuring. Say it's progress. He rallied neighbors, barbecue strategy session. Coolers sweating. Mrs. Kowalski brandished Ellie's codicil. Let us speak. Voices rose. Patel's on community. Ramirez's on roots. Ben sketched a petition banner. Save our stories. And they marched to town hall. 20 strong. Chants echoing. The council blinked. Outvoted. Historic district. The mayor conceded. Cheers erupted. Hugs sloppy with relief. After, on the porch swing, Brandon pulled Ben close. We did it. Ben grinned, nuzzling. Told you. Unbreakable. Their lovemaking under harvest moon was reverent. Porch shadows dancing. Bodies slow burning like embers. Ben's mouth a worship on Brandon's scars. Forever, he breathed, and Brandon sealed it with a vow of his own. Fall gilded the leaves. Thanksgiving gathering kin. Lillian at the table. Carving turkey tentative. Neighbors spilling pie. Laughter rang true. Toasts to Ellie. To promises kept. Winter's Eve. Snow soft. Brandon knelt by the mantel. Eviction notice long burned. Ring in hand. Simple gold band etched with vines. Marry me? Here. Where it all started. Ben's eyes shimmered. Yes. 1,000 times. They wed spring equinox. Backyard affair. Willows weeping witness. Neighbors vowing cheers. Lillian walked Brandon down the aisle of wildflowers. Tears proud. My boys, she whispered. Years wove on. Adoptions. Art shows. Auto empires. The house endured. Cradling their joys. First steps. First heartbreaks. A testament to love's quiet revolution. In Willow Creek's heart, 2 men proved, promises aren't paper. They're the hands that hold them, fierce through storm. And in the attic, Ellie's letter yellowed gently, her words eternal. Love wins. Always.